I would like to call the Heritage Committee meeting to order. And pursuant to Standing Order 1082, Study of Supplementary Estimates B for 2016 and 2017. Vote 1B under Canada Council for the Arts, but I think given the date of this hearing, there will be no votes on this. It's just a subject matter only, and the Honourable Melanie Joly, Minister of Canadian Heritage, will be appearing to speak on the estimates, and with her, our Department of Canadian Heritage, Graham Flack, Deputy Minister, Andrew Francis, Chief Financial Officer. So we shall begin, Madame Joly, for 10 minutes, give or take.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madame la Présidente.
Madam Chair, distinguished committee members, distinguished guests, good afternoon. It's my pleasure to appear before this committee once again. Joining me today are, once again, my Deputy Minister of Canadian Heritage, Graham Flack, and the Department's Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Andrew Francis.
You again today, and I follow the work of this committee with great interest, as you all know, and deeply appreciate the work you do on behalf of Canadians. The studies you currently have underway lend an important voice to the conversation our government is having. The study on the media and local communities in particular is an important one, as it comes at the same moment that we are holding consultations on the future of Canadian content. I look forward to hearing your feedback on a range of topics and continuing to engage in conversation with you on these important initiatives. Il y a maintenant un an que je suis ministre du Patrimoine.
I've been Minister of Canadian Heritage for 1 year now, and it is truly a privilege. All across the country, I have met talented Canadians, bold entrepreneurs, and decision makers in tune with our new realities. I have listened to them. I have seen their projects, their creative spaces, their communities. And I work very hard to meet their expectations and to fulfill the commitments our government has made. Today, I would like to share with you a few examples of what we have accomplished so far and show you how the 2016-2017 supplementary estimates will help us honor our commitments.
I talked about Budget 2016. Budget 2016 set aside an historic level of funding for arts and culture in Canada. $1.9 billion in new funding was committed over 5 years. Supplementary Estimate B seeks $3.4 million in new authorization, $2.8 million in grants and contribution, and $600,000 for operating expenditures. These funds will allow our government to continue to provide Canadians with important economic opportunities, promote Canadian talent, and celebrate our diversity. For example, additional resources in the amount of $1.9 million will go to Young Canada Works program, which will help young people from coast to coast to coast in this country acquire jobs and earn valuable workplace skills. This sum includes $1.6 million for internships and summer jobs in the heritage sector, and $300,000 for green jobs in which young people can work while they improve their official second language skills. I'm proud that our government is increasing funding to this program. That is a key item of my mandate letter from the Prime Minister. Supplementary Estimates B will also authorize $1 million in funding for the Harbourfront Centre in Toronto, which will play an important role promoting, celebrating, and supporting the arts. Le budget supplémentaire B
Supplementary Estimates B provides $75 million to CBC Radio-Canada for 2016-2017. This support is part of the $675 million budgeted over a 5-year period. This is a promise we made to Canadians during the last election, and it is a promise we are keeping because we believe in the importance of having a strong public broadcaster. The Supplementary Estimates B also include $1.5 million for the National Film Board of Canada, which is part of a total of $13.5 million over a 5-year period. This funding will support audiovisual production, audience development, and digitization of the heritage collection. We will also provide funding to the 6 national museums. Budget 2016 provides for $60 million over 5 years for their capital projects and an additional $45.9 million for operating costs for 3 of the national museums. In total, the national museums will receive $30.5 million in 2016-2017 under the Supplementary Estimates B. In addition to massive investments in the arts sector, our government wants to create a nationwide ecosystem that will foster a true culture of innovation. This is a top priority for me. On September 13th of this year, I launched Canada-wide consultations on Canadian content in the digital world. I wanted to open a national dialogue to help me adjust our cultural policy to current realities. I led 6 roundtables in various regions across the country. We organized 3 live consultations on Facebook and made a website available to all Canadians. The consultations are complete. They ended last Friday. 30,000 people participated in the consultations, and more than 400 submitted proposals online.
The context of these consultations, including flexibility in the cultural policy toolkit and the role played by private investments. The consultations are complete, and we're now busy examining the responses. Our goal is to create an ecosystem that encourages innovation, enhances the vitality of Canada's cultural sector, and fosters economic growth. We're working hard to establish an effective cultural export strategy for Canada. We want to help our creators increase the dissemination of their works and our cultural entrepreneurs expand their business opportunities. I've had the privilege of meeting with so many of Canada's finest artists in the past year, and it is from those encounters with their talent, passion, and creativity I've reinforced my drive and commitment to ensuring our government is there to help them find new opportunities and to support their efforts. In my first year as Minister of Canadian Heritage, I conducted pan-Canadian consultation on official languages. All of the roundtable consultations were facilitated either by me or by my parliamentary secretary, Randy Boissonneau. Several of my cabinet colleagues and fellow caucus members and MPs from all parties also took part in these important exchanges. We received more than 5,000 responses online. We held roundtable discussions in 22 cities. We heard over 350 leaders and stakeholders. Our government understands that the best way to learn from Canadians is to listen to and engage with Canadians. Les langues autochtones font partie intégrante.
Aboriginal languages are an integral part of the Canadian identity. With the 150th anniversary of Confederation so close, we must continue to promote them. I am currently working with many stakeholders, including leaders and representatives of Indigenous communities, to create a new strategy to ensure the vitality and growth of Aboriginal languages and cultures. I look forward to discussing this further in the coming months. In just 33 days, on December 31st, we will kick off the celebrations for the 150th anniversary here and in 18 other Canadian cities. As I mentioned earlier, the supplementary estimates B include $480,000 in funds reprofiled from 2018-2019 to 2016-2017 in support of these 2017 celebrations.
Announced in the past few months that will allow Canadians from coast to coast to coast to celebrate this historic moment in their communities and with the rest of Canada. The celebrations will revolve around 4 themes, and at this point, of course, you are aware of these 4 themes, which are Canadian youth, social diversity and inclusion, reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, and our environment. I'm incredibly excited about the year to come and encourage all honourable members of the committee to continue on their important work of promoting and celebrating Canada's 150th anniversary. In conclusion, our government is committed to listening to Canadians so that it may best serve them. We believe in the importance of investing in Canadians and supporting the economic opportunities that they need to succeed. We believe in the importance of celebrating our culture and traditions. We believe that the path of reconciliation is one that we all must be on together, and the relationship between our government and Indigenous peoples will continue to be the most important. Je vous remercie de votre attention et je suis prête.
Thank you for listening. I'm now ready for your questions.
Really well done, under 10 minutes. Thank you. We will now, of course, open the meeting to questions, and I will begin with sharing between Mr. O'Regan and Mr. Nantel. Oh, sorry, Mr. Van Dal. I'm sorry. I know, Pierre, you would love to have been in that question.
You're up. Il y a comme un malaise, là.
I sense a bit of discomfort.
So this is a 7-minute round, and I will give you a notice when you finish your first 3 minutes so you can make a decision about how you will continue to share. So beginning, Mr. O'Regan.
Thank you, Minister. In my mind, the status quo at the CBC is not going to stand. It cannot stand. And going ad-free is not nearly enough. I think our public broadcaster has a critical role to play in providing quality, local, regional news to our communities. We've heard that time and again, especially in more remote and rural parts of this country, where, as we've heard, viable alternatives are exceedingly hard to come by if they exist at all. The CBC, as the public broadcaster and funded by taxpayers, I firmly believe can fill those gaps in the marketplace, because they're no longer gaps. They are gaping chasms when it comes to news. And I really do believe, particularly of late, that our democracy is in peril when people do not have viable, critical journalism in the towns and cities where they live and about the towns and cities where they live. Hubert Lacroix, sitting there as the CEO of the CBC, said time and again, and I couldn't agree with him more, if not the public broadcaster, who? So with Budget 2016 pledging $675 million in funding to CBC and to Radio-Canada, how do you see that money helping to solve this critical issue of viable local news in Canada?
Thank you. Very good question. We believe, of course, in the importance of our public broadcaster, and this is exactly why we decided in our campaign to commit to reinvest. But also as a government, we reinvested, as promised, $675 million over 5 years. That being said, and bearing in mind that CBC Radio-Canada is independent, I expressed 3 wishes that these 3 wishes be taken into account when reinvesting the money of the government and funded by taxpayers. These 3 wishes were the fact of having more local content and local news. The second one was having in mind that CBC Radio-Canada must be in line with the digital reality and invest in its digital infrastructure. And the third one was to increase the new talent at CBC Radio-Canada, get new and young people on board in order to have a strong public broadcaster over the next 50 years. And I think that with understanding more and more the impacts of digital disruption, we are right now looking into all the submissions from CBC Radio-Canada and all media outlets that decided to participate. We asked the Public Policy Forum to study the news industry, and we'll get the report in the coming weeks. We also understand that Canadians, and that was clear in our pre-consultation, 10,000 people participated to our pre-consultation process, and the importance of local news and local content was clearly outlined. And I've said that I'm willing to look at everything was on the table. And the news industry is going through extreme disruption. We understand that it's important that we take into account the fact of having a strong media industry is at the basis of sound democracy. And this is why I'm looking forward to hear also what are the recommendations that you have as a committee, because I think your work is extremely important, and that your work will, of course, be read and taken into account when developing our government response.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Mr. Van Dam.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup pour une...
Thank you. And thank you very much for your opening remarks.
Languages. More important given our 150th anniversary 33 days from now. According to a survey in 2011, approximately 14% of Indigenous citizens identified an Indigenous language as their first language. 64% of Inuit citizens speak their language, compared to 22% First Nations. And if you look at les Métis, only 2.5% speak Michif. Now, we know that language is intrinsically linked to a vibrant culture, and I'm wondering, what is your department planning? What are they doing now? What are they planning to do in the future to preserve, promote Indigenous languages?
Thank you, Dan. This is a good question. Actually, I must remind you that this is part of my mandate letter to develop, along with my colleague Caroline Bennett, a strategy to promote, preserve, and enhance Indigenous languages and cultures. I understand that there are 90 languages, Indigenous languages in the country. Some are not at the same level. There is clearly some, but many of them are in dire states, and dire state. And this is something that I'm looking into right now. As mentioned in my speech, in the next months, I'll be coming with our own plan to respond to this issue. But certainly I see that as an important piece of my mandate. And I see also that it is not only important for, how can I say, for to respond to the mandate letter, but more than that, it's in line with the Truth and Reconciliation recommendation, and we've committed to answer all of these recommendations, and so I'll make sure that that is taken into account.
Merci.
Merci.
Thank you very much. Now I go to Mr. Van Loon for the Conservatives.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There has been some attention in recent weeks to Liberal Cash for Access fundraisers. Have you, Minister, attended any fundraisers for Liberal riding associations or the party that have had stakeholders from your department present?
This is a question that you should be asking the president of my association, my riding association, because my fundraising is not done through myself, but through my riding association in Hansik-Cartierville. And the events I attended were in my riding or just close to my riding.
I'm aware of an event that was held November 7th for the Etobicoke Centre, the Edmonton Centre Liberal Association.
This is a discussion on supplementary estimates. I'm wondering if this question is even in order.
Traditionally, there's wide ambit given to ask questions on any subject matter at estimates. And I thank you again for interrupting me just like last time. There wasn't a fundraiser you attended on November 7th in Edmonton, for the Edmonton Centre Liberal Association that you didn't just mention. Do you know if there were any stakeholders from your department or with interest in your department present there?
This was a fundraiser for my colleague parliamentary secretary. This was not for me. It was done in his own writing. My understanding is that there was a close look to see whether there would be any stakeholders, we made sure that we were aligned with the open and transparent rules, and therefore I was very comfortable going to that event because it's also working with my close parliamentary secretary, Randy Boissonneau.
Did you discuss any of your departmental responsibilities with any stakeholders at that fundraiser?
Not that I understand, no.
There is at least one individual who's a stakeholder for the department dealing with celebrations that posted or tweeted that they had a conversation with you about the arts at that event. Did you discuss the arts with anybody at that event?
Well, lots of people have interest in the arts in general and are very favorable. Yes.
Minister, I think Mr. Van Loon that was skating very close to the line here on discussing private conversations with the minister, with any Canadian who wishes. She's a minister of the arts, and anybody who wants to ask her a question could. I think we're skating pretty close to.
Well, I think it's a legitimate question to ask if somebody's at events people pay to attend, discussing a minister's responsibilities that they have an interest in with their portfolio. But I'll move on to another subject then, Madam Chair, and that is I've looked at the table on the supplementary estimates, and when you add up the initial allocations with, of course, the supplementary amounts, spending overall in your department, whether it's being for your department or entities like the Film Board, CBC, Telefilm, of the 16 entities, it goes up considerably. 16%, in fact, is the increase in spending. Not surprising from a government that's spending out of control. But there's something that sticks out. There are two entities that actually get cuts, significant reductions in funding. Only 2 out of the 16, they are the National Battlefields Commission and the Canadian Museum of History, both of whom are experiencing significant cuts here. Do you think that this reinforces the notion that many have that your government's engaged in a war on history when everybody's getting 6 big increases in excess of 16%, but the 2 entities that deal with history are getting cuts from your department?
I think my colleague is trying to do politics where there's not, but I'll make sure that my department officials give him the right answer.
It doesn't reflect a cut in operating funds. It's the 2 capital projects in both cases that are coming off highs. So in the case of the Museum of History, the Canada Hall was a major capital project. That is, the expenditures were higher in the previous years and are coming down this year as planned. The same with the National Battlefields Commission. It was capital expenditures that do not stay constant every year and have come back.
Are there any other capital asks from those organizations that aren't being funded right now?
Any other capital
asks from those 2 entities that are not being funded right now?
Well, you can answer and
there are, as part of Budget 2016, $60 million over 5 years was allocated for capital backlogs focused on safety and other issues that will be allocated between the major museums. So that's an incremental amount that's coming in that's addressing some of those additional capital asks that you've been describing that have been present, as you know, for some time.
But I find it interesting that it's the history that's getting short shrift. I'll turn it over to Mr. Waugh if we have any time left.
If I may, Mr. Van Loon, I'll just continue answering. There is no politics to be done out of this. The Museum of History was extremely happy because we got into the budget the fact of dealing with an ongoing pressure on the museum for years that was never dealt by the Conservative government, which is getting rid of the issue with PILT. And maybe my deputy could talk about that just a second.
That was the other investment. Payment in lieu of taxes, which is a payment made to municipalities in lieu of taxes, hasn't been increased since authorities were transferred to the museum. So although their tax payments have increased, the government allocation to the museums haven't. So Budget 2016 did deal with a catch-up on that so that they could deal with both the backlog and the payments. And the biggest beneficiary of that actually was the Museum of History because they had the largest backlog on the payment. So that's the other one. I didn't consider it a capital investment when you asked, but it is additional investment that will assist them in not having to deal with other capital pressures.
Or the local municipality, really, is the biggest beneficiary. anyhow, Mr. Waugh.
Yeah, I've got a minute here. I've got to say we were all blindsided yesterday with the announcement of CBC wanting an additional $400 million, including 318 that would allow digital, radio, and television to have no advertising. Your thoughts on that? Because you're giving them $675 million over 5 years. The CBC president, Hubert Lacroix, was here. He made no mention of it, and then he blindsided everyone yesterday with the announcement that he is going to ask the government again for $400 million.
Well, as you all know, we're going through these public consultations, and CBC Radio-Canada decided to go ahead and present their own points of view when it comes to dealing with their own point of view on how a public broadcaster could play a role. Now, they're independent, and they brought this important piece into the discussion. We'll study it, and this will be part of our revision of the entire cultural policy toolkit.
Thank you, Minister. The time is over and up. Thank you. Now, Mr. Nantel.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister Joly, and to the gentlemen who are here today. And I'd like to thank you for your words about the committee. We are very proud. We're very committed. Everybody works hard to help with the issue of regional media. And I'm glad that we won't have to keep bugging the minister about PILT, because we needed a resolution to this. And I'm very pleased this will land up on the finance minister's desk. Now, I was looking at supplementary estimates B. We've been scratching our heads. We're wondering if you got a call from Carole Brabant from Telefilm to tell you that the million wasn't necessary. Could you just specify? Well, I'd like to congratulate you on what you've managed to do and the amount that you've managed to get, except for Telefilm Canada. There was an amount being considered for them. What happened? Well, this is supplementary estimates B. There will still be supplementary estimates C. So what you need to understand is that there is still another period of time. It will be in March. And then there will be other parts of the budget that will have to be confirmed. And obviously, that will be part of supplementary estimate C. Thank you. Now, I've called on you several times about an independent commission for appointments, for example, for administrators of museums. Same for the CRTC. So, you know, the Conservatives were a little faster in 2006. They had this sort of commission. The NDP was really on them. What can we expect from you? Well, generally speaking, in terms of appointments, as you've seen, there are 45 new positions for our 6 national museums. Last week, I looked at that. That's the first time that this has been done. I'm glad to see that there's been good response on social media and that many have participated in the process. Over the next few weeks, we will be announcing the new selection process for administrations, for example, positions within the administration, for example, for CBC Radio-Canada. That's part of my mandate letter. And obviously, we're looking at all appointments. We want to make sure that the process is open and transparent and merit-based. Yes, but my question really is about how you appoint people to boards. Will this new process be announced next year? Well, it was already presented last summer. It was a general announcement. There are 45 appointments, upcoming appointments, and that's part of this new process. As well, there's the Pier 21 appointment, or rather appointments. So we're moving ahead. Now, I have a question on consultations. About 400 briefs were tabled. 30,000 plus people participated. Clearly, there is going to be a lot of analysis that will have to be done. So I have a question about time. And around this table, I think people are wondering what the timetable is. When will you have digested all that information, and when will you be able to respond? Well, we're working very hard. And from what I understand, there are about 272 individuals who submitted comments online, 75 briefs, and 30,000 people who participated, 6 public consultations. That is a lot of work, yes. But I trust that my team is fully capable to take on this task. And we hope in 2017 to be able to bring forward our new public policy for the information and entertainment industry. Well, without being too insistent, when can we actually be part of this process if there isn't a new policy yet, and if everything is on the table? You're not planning on announcing any major changes for Easter, for example, are you? It's rather over the year? Well, I said over the course of the year, 2017. Oh, I see. So you're not going to give us any more details. Too bad. Anyway, yesterday we were all rather surprised. Contrary to my colleagues, I was pleasantly surprised to see the quality of participation of CBC Radio-Canada in its participation. And I remember during the campaign, at the time, along with Mr. Trudeau, you said that you'd be asking CBC Radio-Canada to undertake public consultations on their mandate. Now, I think what they're proposing is interesting. And I've often said that CBC Radio-Canada should be our champion for public broadcasting, and they should be a leader with some sort of special status. So I'd like to hear what you have to say. Earlier, you said that we can call on them to speak before us about what they've proposed. However, my question is to you. Have you spoken to them about these public consultations? Well, with respect to CBC Radio-Canada's mandate, this was raised several times in our consultations. And I think what was good about these consultations is that all policies, all applicable legislation, all kinds of funding were taken into account, were looked at from a sort of holistic perspective. So we didn't look at this in silos. And I think this is a good thing. If we need to, for example, amend the Broadcasting Act, if we need to address the mandate of CBC Radio-Canada, well, we're going to have to do that. But before that, we need to look at the whole. We need to understand what the impact of various decisions is on the various people involved and stakeholders. And we need to be able to come up with a good response to all these interventions. We need to support a healthy democracy. We want to support local content. And it's also important to make sure that we're supporting content creators. We also want a cultural export strategy as well. We want there to be a positive impact, a positive economic impact on the country. Thank you. Well, thank you. I hope we have another opportunity to speak.
Mr. Breton and Mr. Sampson, who are splitting their time.
Veux-tu que je commence?
Who will begin?
Okay.
Mr. Breton, will you begin?
Merci.
Yes.
Oui.
Okay.
Merci, Madame la Ministre.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for coming. It's always a pleasure to have you before this committee. I'll be splitting my time with Mr. Sanson. Very quickly, in your mandate letter, there's a reference to international promotion of Canadian culture. As you know, in my riding, there's an international school in Granby, and the purpose of the school is to train singer-songwriters, for example. It's It's the only school of its kind in Canada. There are many well-known artists who have gone through this school, Lisa Leblanc, Alex Nevsky, Andrea Mallette, and they all went through that school. And it's in the Granby Cégep. So my question is this. You referred to it somewhat in your opening remarks. Could you tell us more about your vision for promoting Canadian cultural talent internationally? Thank you. In my mandate letter, it is clear that I have a responsibility to modernize and reestablish two programs that were abolished by the previous Conservative government. I decided to go a little further than that. I wanted to develop the very first strategy for cultural exports in this country. I'm working closely with my colleagues, as well as with the Minister of International Trade, Chrystia Freeland, in order to develop an approach that takes into account this cultural export strategy, but generally speaking as well, our export and investment strategy for our creative sector. So that means music, that means film, television, books, virtual reality, video games, etc. So we want to take a broader approach than the traditional approach that is restricted to only certain cultural expressions. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Sanson. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to have you here today here at the committee. My question is this. It has to do with your consultations. For a long time, we've been hearing from communities about accountability. How can we make sure the money is going where it's supposed to go? Now, in your consultations, did you hear anything about new strategies or new ways of doing things that would allow for greater accountability in the future? Well, during our public consultations, we heard a lot about business models and changes in business models, and I'm sure you yourselves in the committee have heard about this. As a government, and generally speaking as legislators, our challenge is how can we take relevant government action when the business model is changing? And there's a digital impact as well. There's a change in terms of intermediaries. As a matter of fact, some intermediaries have really disappeared from the scene. So that's why it's absolutely important that we take into account these aspects when we're developing new models as they apply to public culture. And accountability is at the heart of our approach. We have 17 government agencies, portfolio agencies, under Canadian heritage. And within those 17 agencies, obviously accountability is present each and every time. Now there's the official languages issue and accountability as well. There are groups that receive funding under the roadmap, the official languages roadmap. Now that maybe falls a little bit outside. It's part of what you may hear as a committee, and it's also part of what we're hearing. But we will have a new policy as of 2018.
1 minute. Sorry.
Oh, that's good. Quick question. Our government, of course, has increased investment in infrastructure à un niveau presque 4 fois, si vous voulez, le montant qu'on avait.
Level is 4 times that as previously. How can we make sure that minority communities will benefit from these infrastructure investments? That's a very good question. I know it's a good question. It's something that I've often heard, and Randy and myself heard this a lot during our public consultations throughout the country, and that is the importance of investing in community infrastructure. for official languages. There is a great demand for this from minority language communities, but there's also a great demand from the population, generally speaking. They want access to infrastructure. They want access to courses that will give young people an opportunity to learn both official languages, and that's what we are looking at right now. Thank you.
Oh, boy. C'est good, ça.
Take it easy. Take it
Yeah. Parlez-nous un peu de...
Well, then, talk to us about your vision of consultations. What are the two or three things that really have stood out? What might be new? What is new compared to the roadmap? You mean official languages roadmap? Yes. Well, there's the impact of media. And so in terms of official languages, the impact of media in these communities. And throughout the country, I heard about immigration. So in official language, minority official language communities, they want to make sure that their communities will be long-lasting. And I've spoken about this considerably with my colleague, Mr. McCallum, and I heard a lot about community infrastructure as well, and also about early childhood. People would like to be able to be educated in the official language of their choice from early childhood right through adulthood. And what really struck me is that we're seeing now the second generation under the Official Languages Act. And so we're seeing the results of the Official Languages Act. And what's fantastic is that we've seen that this legislation had a transformative impact on the country. Of course, we can always do more. We need to ensure the vitality of official language minority communities because that vitality is fragile, and we need to support it. Well, that was a very good answer as well, may I say.
We are going to go to a second round, but given the time constraints, we're going to do 2 5 minutes, and the NDP will get a 3 minute. Okay? Those are the rules we agreed to at the very beginning when we do not have time. I'm sorry. Mr. Waugh.
Thank you. Thank you for the Canada 150 pin that you handed out, because in my riding of Saskatoon-Grasswood, they want a commemorative pin recognizing Canada's 150th year of Confederation.
Where is it?
Where is it? We've had it in 1867. We had it in 1927. We had it our centennial year, 1967, and we brought it back again in 1992. This pin, this commemorative medal, recognizes distinguished Canadians. And we're not doing that, and I'm wondering why you and your government will not do this for the 150th commemoration of Confederation.
We're working on an important ambassador program right now, which will celebrate through different ways, different gestures, and also how can I say, merchandise, the importance of community leadership. And this ambassador program will be based on having great ambassadors. Some have already been announced, maybe Julie Payette, the astronaut, Art McDonald, the Nobel Prize for Physics, Cardinal Official, an important musician, and many other role models and ambassadors that are known here in Canada in all regions and also internationally. These people will be rolled out over the next few weeks. We're partnering with the Community Foundations of Canada also that have developed a community leadership program. And also we'll have a program of Friends of Canada 150, which will be based on supporting anybody that wants to do volunteerism, for example, in the context of Canada 150. Also, coming from Saskatoon, Kevin, rather than doing these celebrations for Canada 150 only in Ottawa, I decided with my team to celebrate in 19 cities, and that includes Regina and Saskatoon. So we've given money to Saskatoon, the city, and to Regina to organize a December 31st launch, but also Canada Day. That will be the same for Canada Day, and that will be the same also for 3 important celebrations just before Canada Day, namely Indigenous Day, Saint Jean-Baptiste, and also Multiculturalism Day.
I'm running out of time, so I'm going to share it with my friend here, the Honourable Ed Fast. Ed?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to return to CBC. My colleague, Mr. Waugh, mentioned the very surprise announcement by the CBC yesterday that they're seeking another $400 million worth of support from taxpayers. Last year, your government gave CBC $600 million. That's a 60% increase in their funding. Now we find out that the CBC wants another $400 million, which effectively doubles by $1 billion the amount of funding that CBC receives every year. A lot of Canadians will be concerned about that kind of dramatic increase in funding for our public broadcaster. Can you provide this committee assurances that you will reject the latest request from the CBC?
First of all, I just want to make sure that we agree the reinvestment at $675 million is over a period of 5 years. $75 million this year, $150 million over the next 4 years. So it's not an increase of 60%. It's to put at the level of the budget level that CBC Radio-Canada had before the important cuts that were done by the past government.
With respect, Minister, the amount of funding you announced last year over the next 5 years is going to increase the funding for CBC by 60% of its current budget. The current budget is somewhere around $1 billion. You're adding another $600 million.
But I don't want to give you a class in terms of how to calculate, but if you take into account that it's a budget for 5 years, so that it's $1 billion per year, it's $5 billion, and if you're investing 675, that's far from 60%. So just
no, with respect.
But I understand that there's been an important reinvestment, and we're really proud of that reinvestment. But Ed, if I may answer your question in particular, regarding what the CBC presented, the CBC is independent and can present what they want when it comes to their own point of view of what to do when it comes to possibly studying the scenario of going ad-free. They decided that that had a cost, and they presented to the population what would be that cost. Now, it's up to my department to study their report, which was presented yesterday. We will do that when studying all the points of view, not only of CBC, but also of different media outlets, journalists, journalists, groups, and different stakeholders. And I won't prejudge anything at this point, because it's important that we look and give attention to all the points of view of everybody who has participated in this important consultations. This is the first time in 30 years that we're doing this. So I just want to make sure that we do it well.
Thank you, Minister. Time is up. Minister, Ms. Nanta. Sorry, Ms. Dabuson, for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Minister, for coming to speak to us today. Gives me an opportunity to raise an issue that has been flagged in my community quite a bit. My community is home to a lot of people who work in the creative industry, particularly film and television. And there was a lot of concern expressed about CRTC decision that came out at the end of August, which reduced the Canadian content points from 8 to 6 for access to CIPF funds. And so my question for you, because this is something that's causing quite a bit of concern in my community, is what are we doing? What is the government doing to promote Canadian content creators?
And I understand the anguish that lots of people in the industry felt, Canadians, of course, when that decision came about. I've said clearly that when it comes to our own public funding, that we had clear expectation that this public funding would go to Canadian content creators. My position hasn't changed. Now, as mentioned, we are looking into the entire system and understanding what are the impacts of these decisions, but more than that, how to support and enhance and export Canadian content. I think we're extremely strong in Canada. As I mentioned many times, we're the third biggest producer of video games in the world, the third biggest exporter of musical talent in the world. The film and television industry generated $7 billion worth of revenues in 2014, and $3 billion of it was exported. We're nearly number one when it comes to virtual reality because of the work of the NFB. And so because of all these strengths, I'm very confident that we can support Canadian content creators, but more than that, have a much more entrepreneurial approach and be able to enhance risk-taking, and that will be helping in general the ecosystem to have a bigger piece of the pie of international markets.
Great. Thank you. So another study that we've been working on, we mentioned briefly the local media study that we've been working on, but we also looked at museums for a period of time. And in coming that, some of the conversations that I've had with people working in museums is the importance of the Young Canada Works program for museums. I noticed that you mentioned in your opening comments that $1.9 million will be going to the Young Canada Works program. I was wondering if you could expand on exactly what is it, what are we doing with that program? What are our plans for the next year?
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly we're working hard to develop even better our response. You have to understand that Young Canada Works program didn't support in the past the heritage sector, so that's good news. And also, it's supporting jobs for official languages minorities because there is a part of it, 300,000, that is for green jobs, but for OL minority groups. And there is 140 more internships in the heritage sector. So concretely, it's 140 people, young people that are gathering important, relevant, paid also experience that will follow them through their entire career path.
Wonderful. I don't have very much time. I did want just also to thank you. You mentioned in your opening comments about the $1 million in funding for the Harbourfront Centre in Toronto. And being from Toronto, I know what an important role that the Harbourfront Centre plays in our community. So thank you for that. That's an important part. Just quickly, last time, in my last 30 seconds, if we can briefly, I saw that Telefilm has now a policy which is promoting greater gender equity in its film production. I was wondering if you could comment in 20 seconds maybe on that.
Well, Telefilm and the NFB have both decided to embrace the importance of gender parity, and so they've decided in their own independence to develop specific programs, and I'm very happy of the leadership of these two CEOs, maybe Claude or Carole, on this important file.
Thank you, Mr. Nantel. 3 minutes, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sure, Madam Minister, you've received this, or at least you're aware that there's an English-Canadian creators group. There are many people who belong, and they're asking to be heard within the current consultation process. And I imagine there will probably be a similar type of Quebec group that will want to be heard. My colleague, Ms. de Bruzen, asked a question on Canadian content. It's a pretty nuanced issue as to how you interpret what's Canadian content, what isn't, what you export, what you don't. And it's clear to me, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about this. I'd like to know how you will tackle this issue of two realities, two very distinct realities when it comes to production, that of Quebec and that of the rest of Canada. Because I think that cultural export is very significant. It's very important. And how do you tell our story? Because obviously in Quebec, it's very important to be able to tell one story. There were many, many popular shows in Quebec that had to do with that. So how do you reconcile both these realities, especially in a digital world? Well, there's a Francophone market and there's an Anglophone market, and those both are considered together and separately. Both realities are different. But at the same time, these ecosystems are facing similar digital challenges. And this is what I like to say when I have an opportunity. We had 6 roundtables from Iqaluit to Vancouver, going through Halifax, Montreal, Toronto, and Edmonton. I think our country is based on 3 pillars: the importance of both our official languages, English and French. There's another pillar, a multiculturalism pillar. I would even call it a pluralism pillar, because we need to be able to support the rights of minorities and protect the rights of minorities. And that 3rd pillar has to do with reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. So if you look at these 3 pillars of our social contract, we need to take these into account when we're developing a cultural policy. Well, one can't be against a good thing, obviously. However, in Montreal, many people wanted to participate, and I'm trying to talk to you about this sense of urgency. There were people who wanted to participate. They really wanted to participate. There was a sense of urgency. Did they want to do the same in the rest of the country? Yes, there was a lot of enthusiasm in Toronto. There was a lot of enthusiasm, and the same in Iqaluit. There were leaders of organizations throughout the North who came from the Yukon through the Northwest Territories, Nunavut, Northern Quebec, Labrador. There were a good 100 individuals who wanted to participate, so I was very pleased. These are 30,000 individuals who participated in public consultations, and those are the greatest public consultations, that means, of our government. Thank you.
The committee and the minister for being open and frank with their questions, for the minister's ability to entertain some questions that were slightly marginal. Thank you very much. Pleasure. I appreciate this. A motion for meeting to adjourn?